Welcome back to my channel, Simplified English 101. If you are new to my channel, please remember to like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you can be informed when a new video is posted. If you missed my last video where we talked about the characters, the setting, and title of the short story, Mom Luby and the Social Worker by Kristen, don't forget to check that out. Today's video will be a continuation of my last video, where we will talk about the narrative techniques in Mom Luby and the Social Worker. Let's begin. As a reminder, in prose fiction, when we talk about narrative techniques, we're making reference to how the author conveys what they want to say, and of course, the methods that they use to develop the story. Some typical narrative techniques are plot structure, characters, point of view, setting, language, and of course, devices. In this particular story, we are going to talk about narrative voice, use of description, which would include the use of metaphors and similes and other devices, contrast, irony, and humor. Let us begin by looking at our first narrative technique. Now, in every story, there is a narrator. The narrator is the one that tells us the event of the story and can do so in any of the three narrative voices. These are first person, second person, third person limited, or omniscient. The author can decide whether they want the narrator to be a character in a story or an observer of these activities. Once the narrator is a character, they are going to remain a main character, and they can either be round or dynamic, the protagonist, or just the narrative voice, or all of the above. In this story, the narrator is a main character, a round character, and also the narrative voice. Don't forget that this narrator also tells the story in the first person point of view. As a main character and the narrative voice, we are told the events from the first person point of view. We can identify this because the author allows the narrator to use pronouns like I, my, and we. This particular narrative voice allows us as readers to observe the events of the story and the actions of other characters from Elijah's perspective, while of course, he engages or participates in some of these events. While the narrator is able to tell us what is happening in this story, we have been denied access to his thoughts and feelings of other characters, and of course, as well as himself. All we can do as readers, is to make a conclusion using the actions and the behaviors of the narrator, as this narrator is basically only an eyewitness to the majority of the events. As a narrative voice, or this particular narrative voice, we see that Elijah, he is a first-person narrator, which makes the story incredible. This is done because as a participant and also as an observer of these events, he is able to tell us directly about this personal experience of his, thus creating a sort of close relationship between ourselves and him. Therefore, we are going to be forced to believe what we hear, see, and know through his voice. As a narrator, he is able to retell the events without changing his narrative voice from first person to anything else. As this particular narrator, Elijah, he tells the story through his eyes, and this can be seen, of course, as I pointed out earlier, through the use of the pronoun I, me, mine. Throughout the story, Elijah maintained his narrative voice, even when we are told directly what the other characters say. This is also done in the present tense, which helps to make the events more realistic. The narrative voice helps to build intrigue. Because Elijah is an eyewitness to most of the events, we're limited to all the information, and we only know and experience what Elijah knows, what Elijah does, what Elijah sees, and what Elijah experiences. This creates suspense in us, because we are left to try to figure out on our own how his mother died, who Mom Luby is truly is to them, about her so-called husband, what happened on the road with she and Miss Rushmore. Like, there's so many things that we're left without an answer for. And yes, it does make us, a little bit more suspicious and interested in the events taking place. Now, a first-person child narrator can be very descriptive. They stay in character and narrative voice, and they usually make strong narrators. As a first-person child narrator, we can discover and learn new things as the story builds up. Because of the child's lack of perspective and cognitive skills, a first-person child narrator, he or she might not fully understand what's going on. However, in this story, this child narrator is 13 years old, and one can say he's old enough, to understand what is really happening. Therefore, using his narrative voice, it has allowed us to deal with the controversial topics or maybe heavy topics that the author knew that if she used an adult perspective, it would not be taken possibly so serious. So Elijah's point of view allows us to see and allows the writer to speak freely, thus making us easier to accept the thematic concerns which are presented. Next, his narrative voice can be seen as unreliable. Now, that's true. We know that with a first-person child narrator, although the narrator gives us this unfiltered truth about the events, his observations might be skewed depending on how he feels about Mom Luby, how he feels about the social worker, Miss Rushmore, and how he feels about the situation that they're in. Because of that, Elijah, as a first-person narrator, can be unreliable in that he can twist the meaning and the accuracy of the story that he's telling us. It is up to us, therefore, to determine, what we want to believe and if we want to believe him. Now, let us move on into description as a narrative technique. As a narrative technique, we see that description helps to provide a deeper meaning for us by helping us visualize the events. While reading, we can feel as though we are a part of the action being described, thus creating the desired emotional reactions and atmosphere, etc. A few devices that were used to help create this visual appeal are simile, the use of metaphor, and yes, emotional language or emotive language. Simile compares one thing to another. We know that by using words like and as. Now, in the story, for example, we are told how Mom Luby is, how old she is with her white hair like cotton, that she's strong, but she's strong as a young woman, that she is twice as proud. Now, all of this, it helps to create a description of the protagonist, Mom Luby, and allows us, the reader, to sympathize with her situation. We get to know her, we get to understand her, we get to respect and love her for being a foster mom despite her age. We get to show that she wants the help, but she's not desperate, and all of this is important in the description of her as a character and her character traits. Metaphor is very similar in function to a simile, so we can move on into emotive languages. Now, emotive languages is used to create an emotional response in us. For example, when we're told that the children's mother died and they're orphans, or when we are told that the food that they eat, that mom states, that if she gets better quality, she will feed them better. This makes us sympathize with them and wish the best for them. So, this emotive language is also important because it works on us as readers to make us want them to get the help, to need them to get the help. And if they do not get it, we might become disappointed when they become disappointed. Now, there are other emotive languages used, like exaggeration, amongst others. Now, we are going to look at the role of description. Description as a narrative technique in Luby and the social worker helps to make Elijah's language more creative and entertaining. So when Elijah uses the simile and metaphor and emotive languages in his speech, when he talks and in his description, and when he narrates the story to us, it makes it colorful. He's painting a picture. Now, description can be used as a narrative technique to one, establish and change the mood for us, the readers, to create a sense of peace for us, the readers. It can fill in the gap for the setting and, and the character details that we might not be able to see. Now, in Elijah's description of the setting and the characters and the events, it not only showed his cognitive ability, that he is smart, clearly, but that he also understands what's happening around him. And this comes out, of course, in his linguistic ability. It also helps us as readers to be better able to imagine things. Thus, we can better understand the events. And finally, it shows the world through the eyes of the narrator and other characters. Let us move on into another narrative technique. The use of contrast. When we think about contrast in lit or contrast overall, we think about the differences or opposite, especially when the difference is very noticeable. Contrast is very important because it helps us to emphasize the attitudes of both characters being compared and can create biases. For example, we see the clear differences between Mom Luby and Miss Rushmore. Now, one difference is in their name and the meaning of their name or the cultural significance of their name or their name as a means of identification to their race. We see that Mom Luby's name is more appropriate for a Black person, and so it kind of links her to her race or her culture, some sort of identification to who she is. While Miss Rushmore's name is more appropriate for someone who is white because the name itself is taken from the name of a mountain in South Dakota where a giant sculpture of the faces of the 4 great American presidents sit, they say. Now, they are said to represent birth and growth and development and preservation of the country. Thus, Miss Rushmore's name represents the American culture, a symbol of freedom and hope for all cultures and background. So, her name is strictly different from that of Mom Luby because of the possible meaning, means of identification, and symbolism attached to it. So there's contrast in their names. Another contrast is their educational background, which helps to create the financial status of each character. We see that Mom, though she owns her own house and can do over 6 jobs, is not qualified for none. Though Mom is clearly more competent, she would never be placed on the payroll, as Miss Rushmore admits that she is not qualified. Miss Rushmore, on the other hand, is more educated as she is a trained social worker. However, she fails to see the flaws in the government system that an uneducated person like Mom can pinpoint. And she's unable to complete her only task, which is to be a social worker, the one that she trained to be. The contrast exists in this to show us the irony of the situation. It helps us to better understand the reason for the characters' actions, their belief system, and motivation, and even highlights themes like attitudes to the poor, appearance versus reality, power and authority, attitudes to law. Contrast is also seen in their personality, just listing out a few. Mom is older than Miss Rushmore. Mom is strong, Miss Rushmore is not. Mom, because Miss Rushmore appeared tired after returning from, their little road trip. Mom is jovial, Miss Rushmore is a little bit more serious. Mom is not afraid to break the law and conducts various illegal businesses. Miss Rushmore is there to enforce the law and believes in it. Mom is poor, Miss Rushmore appears financially stable. Another point. Contrast, it helps to make the author's arguments stronger, which makes them more memorable for us due to the emphasis placed on them. Contrast also entertains us and creates humor, as well as elicits other emotions from us. Contrast also creates a change in the mood, in the atmosphere. It can heighten the actions of the story, and it can create a balanced structure in the plot. Now, let us move on to irony and humor. Irony as a narrative technique is important as it forces the readers to stop and to think about what was said or to highlight a thematic concern. Rather, it highlights the differences between expectations versus reality, or saying one thing and meaning another, right? Now, irony can be used to create humor. When we talk about humor, we're talking about the quality of being funny, you know? Humor is the heart of literature because of its ability to create pleasure. Humor can create pain, it can ease pain, it can make the world appear a better place. The story has many entertaining events, especially between Miss Rushmore and Mom. Firstly, when Miss Rushmore first enters and Mom tells her to sit and take her shoes off because they look like the real corn crusher. That was funny. When Mom lies about the whereabouts of Pudding and then she uses the broom to hit the curtain, thus create chasing Pudding away. That was funny. The description of Pudding around people loving food and loving people business. In the Caribbean or in Jamaica, we call them licky licky, them overripe, them grown. That was funny too. When Miss Rushmore wants to talk about budgeting after coming in, what they're eating and how unhealthy they're eating, and then suggesting budgeting, that was funny. When Mom lies about her husband, when she lies about the children being hers, when she lies about her age, when she lies about when she gave birth, when she lies about paying the rent while she owns the house, even when Miss Rushmore follows her on her errands to complete her different jobs and return looking a mess. That was funny. Irony can help to highlight the conflict and characters' interaction. So that's point 2. This can be seen when Miss Rushmore visits the home of Mom Luby and states that Mom needs to provide better meals for the children. Hardly a proper diet for children, she says. This is verbal irony because as a social worker, their job is to help help the needy, and clearly Mom needs the help. Thus her application. It is ironic that Mom, at her age and unqualified, is able to successfully complete all 6 jobs within 2 hours. The fact that she has no training or educational background should imply her inability to be so capable. However, the trained graduate, Miss Rushmore, realizes that education does not make a person competent, but she refuses to accept this. And this is why when Mom suggests, put me on the payroll, she finds it so ludicrous. This is ironic again because the inept person, which is Miss Rushmore, though she's educated, she receives a salary that makes her an immediate member of society's middle or upper class. While the competent person who lacks just a piece of paper to show that she's competent is denied the opportunity and will always remain poor. Isn't that ironic? Now, irony is also seen when Mom lies to get the state help for her foster kids. The theme of deception comes into play right here because Mom makes it clear that because of the old bureaucracy and the red tape that exists, these government organizations that are set up to help the needy, one must lie in order to get the help they need. Now, why is this ironic? Because the notion exists that one needs to be truthful when giving information to the state. However, Mom shows that this is not the case because sometimes being too truthful will, of course, deny you the assistance you need. There are other ironic events in the story, and this adds to the humor of the plot. The fact that all of Mom's jobs are illegal. However, she's doing this because she wants the children to get an education and to get the education to accomplish their dreams legally. Ironic. So she's doing something illegal for them to be able to get what they want the legal way. Miss Rushmore refusing to help the children after seeing all the work that Mom puts in order to cater for them. This is ironic. After coming and seeing the stress that this old woman is going through to take care of the children, should force her to give them the help. And the fact that she left without giving them the help and saying that, oh, you don't need my help, you've got this. It's quite ironic. Mom Luby being better able to care for the children than the state, who is fully equipped to do so. This is ironic. And there are many other cases of irony in the story that creates humor. Now, this has taken us, of course, to the end of our lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it and it proved beneficial for you. But before you go, I must remind you, you must like my video. Don't forget to do so. Give me your feedback. Subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to do that either. And always hit the notification bell so that you can be informed when I post new videos. Until next time, bye.